Okay, so a big welcome to tonight's webinar. It's the first integration webinar of 2023. And I'm delighted to welcome back my good friend at this stage, Dr. Bonnie Badenoch. Bonnie, a big welcome.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here. It's good to see you, Liam.
It's great to see you, Bonnie, and I'm really looking forward to tonight. We've got some questions in already that I think are really interesting. And for me, they really kind of show that, you know, people that did the course last year are really kind of grappling with the integration, the personal and the professional integration. So it's super. Mm-hmm. Just to say, tonight has a dual purpose. Firstly, it is to support those of us that were honored to do the course with you last year, Bonnie. So tonight is all about supporting the personal and the professional integration of the material. And secondly, then, it's a big welcome to anybody thinking of joining Bonnie's course this year. You and your questions are very welcome. And Mary, you might put up the link for the course next year if anybody is interested in purchasing tonight. Mm-hmm. And just before we get going, Bonnie, there's a few new people joining, so I just go through a few practicalities. Just to say, if anybody has any issues with tech, what we suggest is that you log off, log back on using the link provided. If the issues persist, what we suggest is that you contact Mary, and Mary's at the end of the email, and Mary's email is mary@pcpsi.ie. So as I said already, people have very kindly sent in questions, Bonnie, but as always, we would really love for people to come on live and interact with Bonnie. Tell us about how your integration is going, how the professional, your personal integration of the material. So we'd love to see, you know, people from last year, but also people that are just interested in this year and that are curious and that have questions. And as always, and just to say that if you do want to come on live, what you need to press is your yellow hand function, which is on the reactions, which is on the right-hand side as I look at it. And I see your name, I'll call out your name, and what we need you to do then is turn on your camera, unmute yourself, and you'll be able to talk to Bonnie. And before we get going, just a big shout out and a big thanks to Robert and Mary, who are in the background and keeping the show on the road. Big thanks to you guys. And so how we like to start, and people have requested this, Bonnie, is that Bonnie's come up with a new concept. It's called Bonnie's Big Ideas.
You came up with that.
Yeah. So Bonnie's going to talk, you know, briefly about a big idea from last year, which will be a recap for people, and it'll also be, you know, for people that are new, just to kind of give you a sense of Bonnie's philosophy of healing. Excuse me, and philosophy of therapy. Okay, Bonnie, over to you.
Okay, well, yeah, it's as you had mentioned that, Liam, I started to, you know, think about it. So it's kind of been running in the back of my mind, you know, what are the core pieces of this? And what I always wind up with is a big circle, that this idea, you know, like, oh, the nervous system's important, you know, and getting to really understand the nervous system, but how much that's linked up with how we influence one another and how much that's linked up with our inner world and all this. So as we jump in today, I'm kind of like taking a piece out of a big circle to talk about a little bit. And so I thought, what is really the core of it? And from my way of thinking about this. And I think that the most important thing maybe I've learned from relational neuroscience is the depth to which we influence one another, how my way of seeing you touches you and brings forward aspects of you, so that if I'm seeing you in terms of assessment or diagnosis, it's going to have a very different sense to you, rather than if I'm seeing you with kind of warm curiosity about where you are today and how you're doing. So knowing that, then what it says to me is that it's so important for each and every one of us throughout our whole career to really be attending to our own inner world with support, and that with support, always with support, not just self-care, but co-care, having supportive people around us who listen to us, who take us in, who help us resolve the things that are upset inside of us. It may include a therapist. It may include a group of people that meet just for this purpose of being present with one another. It may be just a couple of very, very close friends and colleagues that we come together with, but we all need to be receiving that, because we're taking in so much from the people we meet with as well, and it's going to touch our own inner world. So I think that number one is deepening our sense of how much we affect one another, and then being sure that we have the support that's necessary for us to be someone who is comfortable sitting in the room with almost anything that might come up, and being able to be with our people in that kind of witnessing, reflective way that really is the root of healing as far as I'm concerned. So that's idea number one. We'll see what we come up with next time.
Super, Bonnie. That's great. So the invitation is there for anybody to come on live, but while we're waiting, I'll just go through, I'll ask one of the questions, Bonnie, that was sent in.
Okay.
So this question is from John, and it's a long question, so if you need me to stop, Bonnie, just tell me. So John says, Bonnie, I work in an environment where, in my opinion, there is an obsession with turning verbs into nouns, turning complex intrapsychic processes into simple diagnostic categories. I hear all the justifications, i.e., diagnosis means that the interventions can be more specific. Calling addiction a disease reduces shame. I love your idea about trusting that others have a good heart. However, do you think the process of labeling our people is a survival function, a mechanism that supports those doing it to run away from themselves, and inevitably creates another survival function of a multi-tiered class social system?
Mm-hmm. A powerful, powerful question. The answer, I mean, there's not a simple yes, no answer that applies to every single instance. But I do believe that when we begin to back up, in a sense, and do diagnostic kinds of things, and are required to do that, that several things happen. One is that there is certainly a distancing that happens. I'm now looking at you in a more objectified way. I'm seeing you not in the multifaceted individuality of your uniqueness. I'm actually seeking to find some place to put you, some box to put you in, which may be comforting for me at a number of levels. It may give me, again, like you say, a tiered kind of class kind of thing. I'm the expert. You're the whatever word we want to use. You're the patient. You're whatever we want to say. But it separates us, and it does elevate me, and I believe in most cases diminishes you in some way. It also means I have to shift into my left hemisphere to do that kind of assessment. And in doing that, again, there's a kind of subtle abandonment that happens, sometimes not so subtle, where we again are separate from each other, and I am seeing you in a more objectified, distant kind of way. And if, boy, that was any part of your wounding as a child, which for many people it is, it's just increasing the wound all over again. And again, creating a hierarchy, which I'm extremely uncomfortable with. The one thing I will say is that there have been, for some people who have asked me about this, wanting to know what the diagnosis is and all of that, there has been, in the way that maybe I can present it so that it's not pathologizing, that there can be for them some relief in feeling like they're not, as they would say, just crazy, but that there's some reason why they're having these symptoms, and that it makes some sense that this is where it would be. But again, everything depends on how I'm sharing that information. But I certainly think it can be very much a part of a of systemic racism. It can be part of all kinds of marginalization for people who are already suffering in that way. And it is not a way that I want to proceed. I think I had shared, I think toward the end of the first year, that I kind of see, if I have to think that way because of some requirement in the system, that I'm kind of looking at, is this person more anxious, depressed? Is this person more in a dissociative kind of state? Are they more in an addictive? Has this been their pattern of protection? So looking at the patterns of protection that a person has engaged in, because as far as I'm concerned anyway, the DSM is primarily a catalog of protections. It's not about the core of the issue. It's primarily saying, how did this person adapt to the conditions of their childhood? So when we see each other as these individual, infinitely adaptive, unique individual people, there's something very honoring and something that removes the hierarchical kind of thing, because I'm certainly a member of that class as well. You know, we all are. So those are at least some thoughts that I have about that. And if there's anything more that I missed or didn't answer sufficiently, please send something in to Liam and we'll follow on with it. It's a very important question.
Super. Thanks, Bonnie. There's nobody looking to come on live yet, so we'll go back to another question. And this question is from Mary. Bonnie, I love your idea about leading, following, responding in lieu of assessment/protocol. Could you give us a recap of this and comment on why you see it as important?
Yes, boy, talk about big ideas. That certainly would probably be the one we talk about next time if we weren't talking about it today, because I do believe that the way that we are influential for our people, how important our presence is, and their presence for us, you know, how much we're affecting one another, that this kind of idea of leading, following, and responding has become kind of the core method, if you will. Not a protocol, but a core way of seeing what we're doing in the room. So leading goes back to what I said earlier, and that is, I feel like for me to, in a sense, be able to be fully present in the room, I need to be attending to my own health. I need to be having the support that I need so that I come in to that room more as able to be open as I can be with my people. And so that's assuming of leadership is me, again, taking responsibility for my inner world is a big part of that. The other piece that's turned out to be really important for me is to get more and more and more conversant with the relational neuroscience, with the information. Because if I can understand what it is, how we get hurt, how we heal, then as I come into the room, I'm standing on kind of a solid platform of some knowledge that will help keep me stable enough so that I'm able to truly be open to whatever's happening in the moment. So deepening both, you know, as we've talked about Ian McGilchrist and the left hemisphere emissary, and how it isn't what we want to lead with, but it's there in the background to really hold us and steady us. So that, again, is part of, I would say, me taking the lead is, again, being responsible for learning about this and also responsible for my inner world. So then as someone comes into the room, if I'm able to hold a quite safe enough space for them, that's the leadership I want, is like, let's be in this space together where healing can happen. But that's all dependent on how I'm working with myself in all of this, and what support I have around me to keep me with this capacity to offer this kind of safety. So then, as someone comes in, if they sense that, their system will gradually settle into, I believe, whatever the wisdom of their inner system is, will bring into the room with me. And then I want to follow that. Because one of the, again, big ideas is that the neuroscience has taught me that I can trust the person to be bringing to me exactly what they're able to bring to me. They might be angry with me. They might come in and feel very left-centered and just talking. But I trust that if I'm offering a safe enough space, I can follow them in whatever it is they're bringing here, and that we'll go where we need to go. So that's the following. But as I'm following, I'm also having some sense of how I might engage in the conversation. And I don't just mean the verbal conversation, but the relational conversation. So then as I'm following, there's rising up in me in response to what they're bringing, something that I might offer. It might be simply an indication that I'm really deeply listening to them. It might be that I notice that somebody's kind of glancing over at the sand tray shelves as they begin to share something, say about their pain, about their relationship with their brother. And it might lead me then following them, responding by saying, I'm wondering if you're feeling drawn to the sand tray today. Let's check inside. So handing it back to them to see how it is for them. And then they offer me something else. And they're like, I'm not so sure, I don't know if I want to do that. And it's like, well, we could do it or not do it. So which direction shall we go? And they might even say to me, you decide. And I said, well, I'd say, well, let's give it a try and we can stop at any point. So you begin to get this sense that everything that's coming from us is in response to what they're bringing us, and not because we're having our own independent idea, like you're anxious, there's these 6 steps we could do to reduce your anxiety. Maybe what they need in that moment is for me to be with that anxiety and be curious about why that anxiety is necessary right this moment. So it's a very different kind of response, say, to a person saying, I'm anxious. We don't just leap in like with the things we know about anxiety and what might calm it, but instead we become curious and move toward the anxiety and see where it would like to go. So that kind of feeling. So it becomes a conversation then of following and responding and following and responding. And somewhere in the back of our mind, we need this little sign that says 33% with rupture and repair, knowing that in our responses, we are not going to land perfectly all the time, and that there's absolutely nothing wrong with us offering something and the person going, no, that doesn't feel right, or you didn't quite get me, we didn't make a mistake. This is what it is to be a human being. And so there's something really, I think, very beautiful about the fact that rupture and repair actually are optimal. They aren't a mistake. Because every time there's a rupture and we in our humility come back to make a repair, just in our acceptance of who we are as human beings, this person gains hope. It's just so wonderful how hope builds when there's a rupture followed by a repair. It's like things can go wrong, but they can also be set right again. So all of those pieces come into this leading, following, responding.
That's great, Bonnie. Thanks. And there's nobody looking to come on live, but the invitation is there. We'd love to see people come
Yes, good.
So we'll go to another question, and this time it's from Francis. Bonnie, I love the webinars on Ian's work. How the right hemisphere takes in the uniqueness of the moment. How the right hemisphere hands the experience over to the left hemisphere, where it loses its individuality and aliveness and becomes categorized. How ideally the left hemisphere hands it back to the right hemisphere, where the uniqueness and aliveness of the experience is then blended with the left hemisphere's need for structure and organization. Could you give an example of what this looks like in a counseling session?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, that was actually an absolutely beautiful description, Francis, of the process. I mean, you've really got it. You've really got that sense of that right, left, right, left, right. It's almost, for me, it feels like the left then brings its voice in and shares a sense of where we actually are in the process, and gives that kind of support. And then it's easy to relax again into the right hemisphere and be in the moment. And all this is happening often very rapidly without even conscious awareness kind of thing. So an example from being with people in this process. I'm just thinking who comes to mind. Whenever somebody asks a question like this, I like to pause for a moment and kind of notice which one of my people kind of arises. So there's a particular person coming to mind right now who I've seen for quite a long time. And from the beginning, there was a sense always when we get together that she is very uncomfortable right at the beginning. And even after years, this is still there. There's like this period of time where it's as though every part of her is very alert and making sure that I'm okay. I don't mean that I'm okay and she needs to help me. Am I safe? It's assessing how safe I am. And it still happens. And I'm really, welcoming of this. But in that moment of that, I'm just there. I'm not drawing on the left in any particular way. I'm just right there, feeling this tentativeness and feeling then a little bit of it myself, because we affect each other. Like, what are we going to say? Quite how are we going to do this? And as I'm doing that, though, this left hemisphere is coming in and reminding me, maybe even without words, but the felt sense of she's not feeling safe right now. It's okay that we're here. She's telling me something by the way we are experiencing this together, that this space isn't quite safe. And then I'm feeling it in my body too, the like tentativeness, So the left comes in and is almost always these days saying to me, it's okay to be right here because, and offering some peace. And so then that I feel my body settle, and I'm just there. And as my body settles, pretty soon she's following me and we're settling. And then I often say, what comes with you today? Or what are you feeling? Where are you feeling like you want to begin today? And so then she might say, I want to tell you a story of something that happened. It's like, great. So now, again, I'm following my body, her body, just the quality of the space between us, really. How is it doing? And I can feel the relaxation coming in, and I can feel the sense that the safety is increasing and it's affecting both of us. So she's sharing a story, let's say, about something that happened at work, because a lot of her implicit world gets activated at work. And as she's sharing that, I know that my left hemisphere is also picking up and hearing the similarity of some of the themes that have been there all along. It kind of holding the history that I know that I've taken in. And it's hearing the similarities and kind of, giving me that sense. And so as I'm listening to her and I'm feeling this kind of familiarity, there may arise in me something to say about that, like I'm wondering if this is related to this, whatever it might be. And then she might pause, and then we're just there, and I'm just waiting to see. And then she might say, well, yes, and it's also more like this. So now we're back in the unique moment of just following where she is right now. But meanwhile, because these two things aren't really separate, this right and left, it isn't mechanical right, left. My left is taking in and is taking what she's saying and applying it to everything that I also already know about her, and is building inside of me more and more of a sense of something that I'll carry on implicitly and explicitly about her, that informs then how I'm going to respond to her. So anyway, kind of like that. And then as we go on through the whole session, as she adds more, there may come a time I say, does it feel like it would be good to pause and check what your body's feeling like when you tell me about this response that your boss had to you? And then we're following that. And that's adding to what I know about her. So kind of like that. And if there's more, again, that would be helpful to say, just say so. Because it is the flow right, left, right is an ongoing thing that's happening more like a river than like I'm here and now I'm here and now I'm here and now I'm here. It's a river that flows back and forth, is what it feels like in my body and in my mind too, and my heart. And the space between us.
I think we have somebody looking to come on live, which is great. I hope I have the pronunciation right. It's Giselle. So Robert, could you bring in Giselle on, please?
Hi, Bonnie and Liam. Lovely to speak to you. In November of last year, I purchased the Nurturing the Heart with the Brain in Mind. And in November, just in November, and then later I joined the webinar number 10 and number 11. And I've since been done the workshop that Frank Anderson did, and you did one on addiction, and I did the other one with presence and polyvagal. So I'm just wondering, is the mind nurturing the heart with the brain starting again, or is the one being the practice of being present, is that starting this year? Or I haven't started doing the nurturing piece. I've got the book and I'm reading it at the moment before I do the course. So just want to check, if I'm doing the one with the Nurturing the Heart, am I doing that on my own? Because this was from 2022. And what support is there in doing it alone? That's my question.
Yes. So the answer is that the Nurturing the Heart that you have purchased was what we did last year for the year, and that's not going to be repeated this year. That you would be doing that, but I would encourage you, instead of doing it on your own, to see if you can find a listening partner to do it with.
How do I do that?
Well, I don't know, Mary, if there is still support for finding listening partners on the Facebook group or not. Mary, I don't know, you would have to answer that part.
Yeah, and we can, I think that we can find that out. And if you have any problems, you can send me an email, and I often get people that have signed up as well looking for partners.
Yeah.
So we'll I think we should be able to sort something out.
The other thing is that I haven't looked into the one that you're doing, the practice of being present. How different is that from the first one?
Right. So that's right. That's a very good question. So that class came about because we had requests to deepen into this material.
Okay.
And so it's the setup of it is going to be really different. It's going to be much more experiential. People who learn experientially might even want to do that one before they do Nurturing the Heart, which was, we had experiences, but there was a lot more didactic material. So what we'll be doing, Giselle, is there'll be a 1 hour piece in the practice of being present. We'll have a 1 hour didactic piece at this time on a Thursday. And then on the following Saturday, when we meet, we'll have a group of 4 people meeting with me. We'll do a session, or we'll do a consultation with a client. I don't mean the person will be there. The therapist would be talking about that. And then the others will talk about their responses to this, and we'll talk about the principles of relational neuroscience that came up as we did this particular consultation or session. And then we'll have 2 hours of that. So we'll have time to also invite 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, depending on how it goes, of other people from the participants to come on with us as well. So hopefully, in sitting together over a year and doing this, it becomes much more of a living sense of how this counseling room. So, and again, they can be taken in either order, or each of them can be taken alone, and all of them. It will be significantly different.
I think I'd rather do the one on my own, the one that you had last year, Nurturing the Heart, and then, if possible, then do the one you're doing at the moment now, doing that later on.
Well, we're not starting till July, so our hope is that people might will have a chance to do this. If you haven't done all of the Nurturing the Heart yet, you still, sounds like, have about 10 of them to do. Might have time to do that between now and when we start in July.
I can work with that time frame.
That would be lovely. Well, that's one of the reasons we did it, is also so that first year can kind of settle for people a bit. And then we'll come on with the second one.
Okay, so Liam, I got an email the other day about purchasing the second one, Practicing of Being. is it worthwhile me paying for that now and then it starts in July?
Whatever suits you.
Right.
You
Okay.
can purchase it now or you can purchase it later, whatever supports you best.
Okay, grand. Great. That's lovely. Thank you very much for those answers. Much appreciated.
Thank you for the questions.
Okay, great, Bonnie. So we'll go back to another question, and again, we'd love to see somebody else on. I'd love to see a face from last year, just to hear how people are getting on with the integration process. So if anybody would like to come on, we'd love to see you. And a question from Finbar. So Bonnie, I love the talk on the two hemispheres. I think of a particular client who predominantly sees the world through the right hemisphere. She gets overwhelmed by the suffering of people and the world. For a person like this, would a course of CBT be helpful? Would this protocol-based therapy help the left hemisphere come more online? Is it easier to create relationship between the two hemispheres if both are online? Or is this too simplistic a way of looking at it? Lastly, do you see value in a treatment like EMDR to support the relationship of the hemispheres?
Yeah, and the answer to all of that is it depends on the person. You know, different people are going to respond to different ways of doing things. But yes, when someone is feeling really overwhelmed by the right hemisphere, one of the most important things that happens when they come to us is that they have the opportunity for that upset to be co-regulated with us. So that we're really building in, if this is the hand model of the brain, familiar from our friend Dan Siegel, if they're overwhelmed frequently, part of what's happening is that there's likely a great deal of maybe inborn sensitivity, but also trauma that hasn't been met. And so there isn't good connection between this orbital frontal cortex and the amygdala, and maybe not the opportunity to internalize others who are comforting and quieting. So part of our work with that person is that when they come in this distress, is that they are met and held by our larger window of receptivity, window of tolerance, and that as they feel held and feel safety there, this circuitry begins to get stronger and they're less overwhelmed. This person may also be what I think these days we're calling a highly sensitive person, and that they're always going to have a tendency to feel more deeply for others than some people might. So some people, that's also part of the picture. Once there's better integration on this side through co-regulation, the relationship between the hemispheres is more free to develop. Because when we get upset enough, the left hemisphere goes offline. I mean, obviously, this person sounds like they walk around in the world and get some things done. So their left hemisphere isn't completely gone. It just isn't connected in a way that the two are working together in this way. So again, co-regulation is, to me, number one when someone comes in and has this overwhelmed kind of experience going on. Then we can explore together if there are some ways that might be helpful for them. I have worked with, at least two people are coming to my mind right now, and I thank them for it, where I found myself doing a lot of what we might call psychoeducation that really helped to stabilize their sense of why they were feeling the way that they were feeling. For me, it wasn't so much psychoeducation as it was offering their left hemisphere a way to hold the right hemisphere. In other words, it wasn't detached, just get this information in them and it will be better. But it was a way to offer, because the left hemisphere needs a story. So it was a way for this left hemisphere to have a story that then just kind of naturally, as they healed, could come together with the right hemisphere. Because this is what we want, is the two of them being able to work together for the left to kind of hold the stability and the right to feel deeply. So we could say that's a more left hemisphere approach. It's not really CBT, but it's a more a more left hemisphere nourishing kind of support. EMDR, if it is something that works for the person and they feel comfortable with it, and they don't simply get more overwhelmed doing it, is something that is possible also to offer, because we always have to remember that what Francine Shapiro discovered was not a technique. She had an experience while she was walking and having emotions, and noticed that when her eyes went back and forth, that she felt calmer, because it was bringing two things together. So it's a natural process. And if it's presented to a person in a way that it isn't just a protocol, but is like, let's explore what might happen if you did this kind of thing, and let's see where it takes us. Some people simply shut off when there's too much, like when they're doing that. The person who is the recipient of it, the person who, our person, may simply shut off and go into the left hemisphere to protect themselves if too much gets stirred up. All kinds of things can happen, from it being a wonderfully healing process to it being a more separating process, depending on the person. So this is where following the person and checking in with them about how this is for them, and having our own embodied sense of if this is becoming a healing embodied experience for them or not, it varies totally from person to person. So there isn't one answer to this, except to say that when the right hemisphere is having all this upset, co-regulation is an essential piece to build the circuitry and take in and internalize a person who is in a more calm, receptive state, so that their inner world can have this greater capacity to manage what it is that's coming in to their very sensitive right hemisphere. I don't know if that got to everything you were asking, but the hard part about these things is there's no right or wrong answer for each person. There's no, this always works for anybody. These are all things that in the following and the responding, we have the opportunity to explore with the person what's helping them and what isn't, as they develop more capacity to sense that inside themselves. And then they can guide us. So someone might come in and say, I'm just really feeling like EMDR would be so helpful today, or we can offer it, and they can say, well, let's try, but maybe it won't be. So can we stop if it isn't, that kind of flexibility where we again continue to follow, even if we're doing something that looks a little more like protocol.
There's only a right and wrong answer if we're in the left hemisphere.
Yeah, I know, right? Our left hemisphere would like it. If X symptom is in the room, you do Y, and it always resolves. And wow, is that ever not how we work?
Absolutely. Okay, Bonnie, thanks. So Annette is looking to come on live. So Robert, could you bring on Annette, please?
Hi, Annette. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Excuse my delay. I'm not familiar with how this works, but I think I got it.
You did, and we get a moment to just kind of be quiet for a minute, and that's okay too. No problem.
Thank you. Bonnie, it's wonderful to meet you. I have to tell you, I'm not familiar with your work, so I'm really delighting in this opportunity to get to know you and your work. And I was drawn in because I've done a lot of work with polyvagal theory and have done Deb Dana's Foundations course and also her supervision course. And I have a presencing practice that I have been doing for, oh gosh, probably close to 4 decades now. And it's, yes, and it's very much the way I work with clients. Is coming into this place of presencing and allowing that to kind of guide what happens in this session. The question I have for you is, I'm very immersed, as I said, in polyvagal theory, also in IFS. Could you tell me a little bit about what you're bringing? Because the fact that you're bringing presencing really draws me in. And when I'm hearing about the neuroscience, the relational neuroscience, I'm also intrigued. So if you could say a little bit more about what you're bringing that might tie in with the other things I'm familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a very big devotee of polyvagal theory as well. I think, and Deb and I are actually good friends, so we're pretty familiar with the differences between the way we present it and also the similarities and that kind of thing. I think that my work has led me to want to look at polyvagal theory, say, next to Ponccep's work with the midbrain, next to social baseline theory, next to how it is that the belly brain is part of this experience, what happens in the heart brain, and to draw in as many different viewpoints, and a lot of emphasis too on Ian McGilchrist and the two hemispheres of the brain, and see how all of these different viewpoints nourish each other and give us a kind of a full picture of how it is that we get hurt as human beings, how we heal, and the absolute centrality of relationship in the healing process. Because we hear about it in grad school, but then what we learn are all these other things that pull us away from presence for the most part. And it's been difficult. And a lot of trainings do that too. So coming back home, like it sounds you do, you know, into the idea of presence being so important. IFS is one approach to working with different parts inside. The intercommunity approach is a little different than that, and that's kind of been the heart of the work for me for like you for many decades. And that is about bringing in the neuroscience of attachment, of how these parts get in there, and also working with, say, not only the child part but the parent part inside as part of an overall healing process for someone. So a little different than the way IFS sees it. And I think Dick Schwartz comes from a more systems background. I was originally more of an attachment background kind of thing before I got to interpersonal neurobiology and relational neuroscience. So my approach emphasizes those aspects. And I think, you know, Dick's approach is more based on the systemic way that he has learned, you know, that he's come to see things. So I think there are some significant overlap, but also some really significant differences between intercommunity and IFS. Mm-hmm. But my interest has been to see how all of these various wonderful theoreticians and scientists are really telling us the same thing, and how can we orient in our presence to all of these different aspects. And let me know if there's something else that would be helpful.
A follow-up question. So the structure of the training that's coming up this year, as you said, it sounds like it's very experiential. Is there a theory teaching element to it? Is that woven into the experiential pieces that we'll either be participating in or witnessing?
Yes. So on Thursday evenings, there'll be an hour that's purely didactic. And it'll be one of these kind of big topics that we covered last year. It'll be, what do I want to say? It'll be like taking a piece of that and really delving into it deeply, a deeper understanding of that. And then also on the experiential part that we'll do the following Saturday, after we do the consultation or we do the session, we'll be talking about it in two ways. One is what was the experience of the other people who were present, but then moving into what were the principles of relational neuroscience that were illustrated by what we just did. Like how might, so there'll be hopefully a blending of the experience with the theory so that we get this left hemisphere emissary and this right hemisphere experience really overlapping each other.
Lovely. And the relational neuroscience that you're going to be kind of addressing in the upcoming, I want to say seminar, it's so lengthy, it's wonderful. Like you really get to dive in. Will that cover the different areas that you mentioned when you first started explaining to? Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You're very welcome. Thank you for coming.
Okay, Bonnie, great. So we have another question, and the question is from Marie. Bonnie, how autonomic/automatic is our nervous system when the threat is a internalized threat that has been touched and awakened? Stephen has helped us understand what happens when our nervous system detects below conscious awareness and neuroception of danger/life threat. Does the same principles apply when the trigger comes from within? Or do we have some influence using the nervous system to disconnect from the internalized threat? Do we creatively use our nervous system to run from implicit memory? We may be doing this for many years and it can feel like it's not us doing it.
Yes. So again, these questions are great because they have no simple answers that are yes or no kinds of answers, which I think are the very best thing. So again, when we think in terms of neural integration, meaning how is all the circuitry in our embodied brain working together and connected, and which parts are not connected yet, which parts are not able to work together. The more that we develop have a more integrative experience in our overall system, the more there is the possibility of us, when we feel this arousal inside because an implicit memory has been touched, we begin to develop something that we could call the caring observer that might be able to say something like, I know where I am. I'm having all these feelings come up. I'm feeling afraid. My heart is beating fast. My belly is hurting. My legs want to run. And I know, I can sense also, because I've been here before usually, that this is coming from the implicit world. Knowing that does nothing to change necessarily the feelings we're having, but it will change whether we need to act on them or not. So instead of having our nervous system simply carry us away so that we do whatever it is we do to protect ourselves, we can often begin to have more capacity to hold this, and especially when we have the good support of people on the outside, therapists, friends, all of that. And also that we internalize people to help us with that support on the inside. So our capacity to respond to this neuroception of danger that comes up when something is awakened inside of us, when trauma is awakened inside of us, really changes over the course of healing, where it goes from initially us having probably no ability to be with that neuroception except to feel it, experience it, and probably in some way act on it. Maybe we bring up a protector, maybe we just get out of there. I remember a person that I was seeing saying, I'm walking down the street, it's a pretty day, and all of a sudden I feel this intense need to turn around and get back home as quickly as I can. And she did that. She turned around and she just got back home very fast and didn't feel safe till the door was closed and locked, and had no idea what happened. It just happened. This was pretty early on in our work. And I said, that was good. You were responding to something that happened inside. We may never, ever know what touched this and woke it up a sense of danger. But you were following something that was as real for you internally as if there had been an angry dog in front of you in the outside world. You know, it's as true, it's as real, it's as valid, and it's as important. Well, over the time of us working together, she began to develop again this more integrated neural circuitry, this sense of safety that we had cultivated together, the sense of our usness inside of her. And she began to be able to, instead of instantly responding to the neuroception, to be curious about it for a moment, to look around, and then to feel again the familiarity of this fear that would come up. And then she could make a decision about whether she was going to go back home because that's what it felt like she should do, or whether she felt she could stay here. And she said, I got so that I'd find a nice tree to sit under and put my back against it and think of you and think of us and think of the child who was so scared as a little girl. And then I would decide whether I needed to go back home or not. So over time, we begin to be able to work with these things because there's been enough healing that there's a little bit of a distance between the neuroception and the need to act on it. And that comes from healing. But the earlier response of just acting on it is also wisdom, because that's what our system is knowing in the moment. We're not doing something wrong. She wasn't wrong to go back home. That was where she was internally, and it was just as valid again as if the threat had actually been coming from the outside. So this develops over time, and it's one of the ways that I can know as people tell me that they're able to kind of slow down and sense where they are, that some actual change in their brains, and actually some changes in the degree to which we're interwoven with each other have happened because this new capacity begins to come online. And it can be variable too. The next time, so she's able to do this one time, it doesn't mean it's going to be that way the next time, because we don't know how awakened she'll be inside, what her capacity will be at that time, how supported she's feeling. So it's going to be very much, like this for a long time. But eventually we see more and more and more of the times when we are able to just be with that experience and not have it completely take us over. So that's again a great question.
Okay, thanks, Bonnie. So maybe we'll bring on the last person. So Robert, could you bring on Mina, please?
Hey, Mina, good to see you.
Hello. I don't think I've ever thanked you and Liam and Robert and Mary for this amazing year of healing. Oh my goodness. And then the videos that just make it so much richer because there's so much I didn't hear.
That's the way it is, isn't it? For me too.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful that we're going to have another year with you. Just your voice alone is dopamine for me. What I wanted to ask you is a question after having viewed your videos and feeling the courage of saying to myself, as well as the people that I work with, encouraging them to lean into these messages from their body, the sensations that may not be necessarily verbal, but they're just the language of our body trying to communicate to us. And so my question to you is, how do you differentiate, how do you handle the fine line between leaning into it, trying to hear a message, and rumination, where the individuals are caught up in the same discouraging thoughts, but the wisdom of the body is not necessarily emerging? Does that make sense to you? Does that?
I'm not sure I completely understand what you're saying, Mina, but let's see, let's start and then you guide me if
okay.
As far as where we're going. Yeah, I think that what I'm wanting to do is to not so much encourage them to lean in, but to ask, does it feel like we could move toward that sensation in your body? So I'm trying to hand it back to them to check it out and see if it feels okay to go there. Because I want to honor their sense, if it's like not today or only a little bit, or maybe we just want to put a toe in and then back up. I want them to be developing the capacity to listen to what their body is asking of them. So I'm offering an invitation to step into that. Now, once we've gotten there, it's what happens next. And I'm hoping that with this coming year, this will become really clear what those next steps are, which is beginning to connect with wherever this sensation is coming from, so that disconfirming experience can come in and begin to change that implicit experience for them. So let's say this person is afraid and we're moving toward the tight belly. The belly's really tight. And we step into that, and this person begins to get a sense of the depth of this fear. Then I'm going to be saying, can you feel me with you? Can we be with this fear now? Does it feel all right to be there? And that in my own being, this is again where we started, if I'm offering a kind of quiet, safe space, that experience begins to go into this neural net where the fear was before. It begins to soothe it. There begins to be actual change in the quality, the felt sense quality of that neural net. And as that changes, the thoughts will also change. There won't be the same kind of rumination on things over time, because the thing that's driving those ruminations is being healed, because there's more of a sense of comfort and safety and things from now, rather than being captured so much by the things from then that are driving the ruminating thoughts.
Gotcha.
Did that make sense?
Yes, this is definitely adding a nuance, the permission, I think. And may I follow it up with a sequence question? Sure. So the sequence question has to do with, I believe, a comment you made in which you said, I wake up in the morning, or every day I greet, inviting all my parts to come and I welcome them. So is that at a later stage? Because again, there is this discomfort, or again, the individual's feeling like, I don't want to think about this anymore. I can't, I don't want to go there. I want to feel calm. I don't want to go into the feeling of not feeling comfortable and feeling stressed and so on.
Yeah, because I think, I don't know exactly how I said it, when you heard me, and I may have said exactly those words. The actual experience for me is I wake up and maybe I'm feeling some kind of mental, emotional discomfort.
Yeah, that's what you said.
You are welcome here. Anybody
Right.
who needs to be here is welcome here. What I don't want to do is send it away. If I do want to send it away, that's a protector. And maybe I do. Maybe I don't even remember to ask. I want to just get on with my day. So again, it varies for the person. But when I hear somebody telling me, I wake up every morning and I'm really scared, I might say, what would it be like for us to say, fear, you're welcome here. Let me be with you. What are you trying to tell me? Do you feel like you could do that? And if they say, I don't want to do that, I say, that's just fine.
Gotcha.
But there's something about, one thing I know for sure for me, and I think just about all of us, is those things that I push away regularly are going to keep coming back stronger and stronger until I listen to them. I think of my daughter when she was little, and she would tug on my pant leg until I noticed her. And then she'd get loud. And if I was, not paying attention, she was going to get my attention. So there's some value in helping people know that the welcoming may actually help it to calm, when we just need to see how that is for the person.
So the welcoming is not necessarily an invitation to rumination, or it could happen to the individual. And if it happens, then what do we suggest to them? How can we present the fine line that maybe you're going into rumination, or any thoughts on that?
Well, again, if somebody's ruminating on something, whatever they're ruminating on is trying to get their attention to heal. So when they find themselves going there again and again, then it's like, what do you notice? Do you notice anything in your body when these thoughts come up? Gotcha. Can we invite them into the room now that we're here together, where we can both hold them, where we have more strength together to hold them, and then go into the body and begin to, really work with whatever it is that, again, is driving the thought. Thoughts are secondary to the inner world's experience.
Okay.
And it can take a long time, and they may find they're still waking up with that for months, but we're going to be working with it as best we can.
Okay. Baby steps.
I don't know if there's any other kind, Mina.
Okay, thank you again. So nice to see you. And I look forward to seeing you in the summer.
Oh, me too. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Mina.
Thank you.
So unfortunately, Bonnie, we're at the end.
Well, it's lovely to be here.
All good things must come to an end. And a big thanks to you, Bonnie. That was a great start.
That was really lovely. And the questions are so deep and meaningful. I really, really am grateful for all of them. And of course, for you and Robert and Mary, too.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to, if people are curious about what it's going to be like in this coming year that starts in July, on March 4th, we're going to do a model of that. We're going to do a panel experience so people can come. So just if people wanted to mark their calendars, it'll be 7 a.m. in Pacific time, and it will be who knows what time in Ireland.
Brilliant. So just a few practicalities before we go. Apologies. There was a lot of questions came in through the Q&A that we didn't get to, so my sincere apologies for that. What we suggest is that you send the questions to me. My email is liam@pcpsi.ie, and we'll get to the questions the next time. If anybody's interested in purchasing a CPD cert for this event, Mary might post the link now, and you can do that. And just to say that we're supposed to do the next integration webinar, Bonnie, on the 23rd of February, but we may have to reschedule that, because the good news is that myself, Mary, and Robert were after being invited to Florence in Italy.
Oh, lovely. I'm jealous.
Yeah, we tried to get you in it, but they wouldn't allow it.
Oh gosh.
So we will be in Florence on the 23rd, so we'll reschedule that.
Okay.
And just as well, just as you said, Bonnie, a big thanks to Mary and Robert that are in the background. I just think there's a message here somewhere. Thanks, Mary. I would like a CPD. So yeah, anybody who wants a CPD, so just follow the link that Mary put up. And listen, we look forward to seeing you soon, Bonnie. If not in February, we're here in March anyway for the 2 hours, so that'll be great.
Yeah, that will be wonderful. So we'll look to see what else we can do. We'll be back with you guys very soon, so it'll be good to see you then.
Thanks, Bonnie, and thanks everybody for joining. Have a good night. Bye.